The numbers are clear. India is now in its third coronavirus wave, this driven by the Omicron variant. Let's look at the data. Well, 379 new cases in the last 24 hours. That's up nearly 11% from yesterday. Deaths are reported in the last 24 hours are stable at 124. The vaccination update is at 7 o'clock. It was at over 91 lakhs. So the number less than yesterday, but still a high number. Teens vaccination. So how's that going? At 7 p.m. this evening, it was 81 lakhs, 45,038. Also tests, we can see there is up by 31%. So that's good news there as well. Let's just look at the total cases, and this is important to show the increase. So if you look at the total cases, India currently has at 3,49,060,261. Number of daily cases, the percentage increase is at 0.11%. 1 week ago, we can see from 1 week ago, it's increased by 6,358. 2 weeks ago, again, the percentage increase was 5,326. And again, it's a 6,822%. So just see how Omicron is driving that huge spiral in the number of India's daily cases. So let's look at the global numbers. The United States setting a global record there, crossing 1 million cases. The United Kingdom is also at 1,87,851 cases. France at 67,489 cases. Now remember, of course, their population much lesser than ours, so their positivity rate very high. Turkey is at 44,869, and India now again in the top 5 after a long time at 37,379 cases. Well, today Delhi's Chief Minister tweeted that he has tested positive. He is isolating and luckily has mild symptoms. This comes 24 hours after his latest election rally in Dehradun in Uttarakhand. And as more and more politicians are tweeting today that they've tested positive, many for the second or the third time, the big question is, how are we letting super spreader rallies that they're addressing, attending, organizing continue at the time India is hitting its third wave?
The Prime Minister campaigning in election-bound Manipur. The UP Chief Minister too attending this event in Deoband, laying the foundation stone for an ATS office. After criss-crossing Goa and Punjab, the Delhi Chief Minister has tested positive for COVID. Congress's ladki sakti marathon continues despite Priyanka Gandhi quarantining herself. From Punjab to UP to Goa, guess what is that one thing completely unaffected by the COVID third wave? Election rallies. Remember these pictures from the West Bengal elections 9 months ago? The second wave, accentuated by a political stubbornness to go ahead with the election rallies by the day and then hold COVID preparedness meetings in the night. 9 months later, no lessons learned, and the horrific nightmare playing out all over again.
So the question is, why are these big election rallies being allowed? The Election Commission held a meeting today to review poll preparedness in the light of the fresh COVID wave. But when they've been asked about this in the past, they've simply said that till the time elections are announced and the state administrations start reporting to them, there is nothing they can do about it.
So what can one expect of state governments and state administrations when state chiefs themselves are busy canvassing with zero regard for COVID protocols, social distancing or masks?
ਕਿ ਜੇਕਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੰਡਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਰੁਕੇਗੀ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਇਹ ਰੈਲੀ ਦੀ ਪਰਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਬਕਾਇਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨਸ ਲਗਾ ਕੇ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਮੰਚ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਲਗਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਉਹ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਟਡ ਹੋਣ, ਮਾਸਕ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਹੋਵੇ, ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸਿੰਗ।
Delhi has introduced weekend curfews in addition to night curfews. Similar steps are being taken in Mumbai as well. But leaders from these states out campaigning in other parts of the country seem to have relaxed their rules for themselves. So have the politicians forgotten the reality in these poll-bound states just 9 months ago? The floating corpses in the Ganges across UP just 9 months ago? Had they forgotten that 9 months ago cremation grounds ran on full in Punjab? Or that there was an oxygen plant mishap in a Goa hospital just 9 months ago? Is election simply a priority over health, with rallies as super spreader events and lessons from Bengal forgotten all in 9 months? Bureau Report, NDTV.
And let's just look now at the districts with the highest weekly positivity rates. Well, this is for the last week, ending the 3rd. So the highest district with the highest positivity rate is Lahore and Spiti in Himachal Pradesh. It's at 63.64%. Then followed by Kolkata at 38.37%. Now remember, West Bengal civic elections are going ahead despite these numbers. Then Howrah also at 22.3%. Followed by Mizoram, Koderma and Jharkhand. Now here it could also be because tests are much lower. Followed by Mumbai. Now that's 14.3% and also 13.92% in a different district of Mumbai. And North Goa again, which has seen all those hectic New Year's parties, huge crowds on the beaches, is also at 13.44%. So Mumbai currently, unfortunately, India's COVID capital. The latest cases are over 10,000, in fact nearly 11,000 in the last 24 hours. So they've actually gone up by over 2,000 cases just in the last 24 hours. So that's a climb of 34.37%. Let's go across to Saurabh, who's currently in fact at what's now being called the COVID cruise ship, the Cordelia, which has just returned from Goa after 66 patients tested positive. So we can see there, Saurabh, the numbers, Mumbai crossing over 10,860 cases, but also the worry that hospitalization going up as well.
Yes, Sonia, and if I can straight away take you to the hospitalization figures today, that's about 834 hospitalizations today, and of them 52 are dependent on oxygen support. Now I'm at the International Cruise Terminal in Mumbai, and what you see beyond these gates is of course that cruise ship, that massive cruise ship with around 2,000 odd passengers that has just docked in Mumbai on a day that the city reported nearly 11,000 cases, as you mentioned. Now the ship of course is here. You can see that white structure there is of course the ship just across these gates, and no one will be allowed to disembark. Now the ship of course had docked in Goa. There also no one was allowed to disembark. 66 people have tested positive. Now again in Mumbai they're all going to undergo tests. The ship of course right there, and everyone will remain inside the ship till at least tomorrow morning when all tests will be completed. Now once the tests are completed, those who test positive will be taken away in COVID ambulances that have been parked right at the gates of this cruise terminal, and then of course they will all, if they are positive, if they're negative, they'll be allowed to go.
Right, Saurabh. So really, that's now the COVID cruise ship docking with that worrying rise in Mumbai. But again, there's no weekend curfew, no lockdown. They're waiting for the 20,000 cases bar there. But as we're seeing, the World Health Organization saying Omicron is not a common cold. Don't underestimate it. Well, Delhi went ahead and announced a weekend curfew today as cases here crossed 5,000. We had 5,481 in the last 24 hours. Again, that's a rise of over 1,000 cases in just 24 hours. We're up by over 33.71%. So just look at Delhi in the 28th of December. That's last week. We had 496 cases just a week ago. And today we are at over 5,000 cases at 5,481. So a series of curves being announced, and COVID positive patients in hospitals today are at 482. The good news is that the vast majority don't need oxygen support. They're mainly moderate, but we can't underestimate it because often there's a 2-week lag between cases and serious symptoms or deaths. Currently the severe patients on ventilator support are 14. So let's just look at the fresh curbs announced today in Delhi. Well, they include a weekend curfew. Also importantly, the buses and metros are back to full capacity because of long lines when these were actually cut down. Also today, the Delhi government has announced that 40% of all beds in private hospitals and nursing homes must be reserved for COVID patients.
दिल्ली में सैटरडे और संडे को यानी वीकेंड्स पर अब कर्फ्यू रहेगा। तो गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसेज वर्क फ्रॉम होम मोड पे रहेंगे। बसें और मेट्रो पूरी कैपेसिटी पे चलेंगी।
The weekend curfew in Delhi announced on a day when the Chief Minister announced that he tested positive for COVID. Arvind Kejriwal says he has mild symptoms. Delhi's current positivity rate is at 8.5% with daily cases crossing the 5,000 mark. The city's health minister has ruled out the possibility of a lockdown.
दिल्ली में कोई लॉकडाउन नहीं लगाया जा रहा फॉर द टाइम।
संक्रमण दर कितनी दर्ज होगी?
लगभग 8.5% के आसपास।
The news of a weekend curfew means a complete restriction on people's movements and curbs on non-essential activities. It also comes at a time when dozens of doctors across the national capital are testing positive for COVID. 23 doctors in Safdarjung have contracted the virus. At AIIMS, the winter break has been cancelled for medical staff who have been told to return to work immediately. The curbs announced today include weekend curfew on Saturdays and Sundays in Delhi. The night curfew will continue. Buses and metros will function at full capacity. Essential services will continue. Government offices barring essential services will have to return to work from home, and private offices are to function at 50% capacity and have been urged to opt for work from home for all employees. So how will this weekend curfew impact small businesses?
असर पड़ेगा बहुत ज्यादा हम क्या करके खाएंगे सब पार्टी के नेता है जो मास्क नहीं पहन रहे और सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग नहीं है लेकिन कर्फ्यू लग रहा है यहाँ तो मैडम उनके लिए भी तो कर्फ्यू लगना चाहिए ना हमारे को गरीब आदमी हम तो मारे जाएंगे.
On the 27th of December, of a total of 1,382 COVID ICU beds with ventilators, only 11 were occupied. Today, of the 1,389 COVID ICU beds with ventilators, as many as 64 are occupied. On the 27th of December, of 10,400 COVID oxygen beds, 257 were occupied. The number of beds has now been reduced. Of the 8,547 oxygen beds, 553 are now occupied.
Delhi saw this coming. First, a public ban on gatherings before festivals, then a yellow alert, and now a weekend curfew announced on a day when the Chief Minister himself has said he has tested positive for COVID. All of this as India witnesses a third wave of COVID. With Sushil Rathi, Shanakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
And Karnataka's Chief Minister also met today to discuss COVID restrictions as cases here are also doubling every 2 to 3 days. The latest numbers luckily are overall low, the 2,749 new cases, but there are 4 deaths and the doubling rate is worrying. And of these cases in Karnataka, 2,053, the vast majority are in Bengaluru. The state positivity rate is 2.59. It's still below what the national average is, but they have to be careful that this doesn't climb. So the Chief Minister having a special meeting today. Well, the other big headline is the fact that now another big worry is how doctors and nurses and healthcare workers are getting infected with COVID. In Lucknow, in the Medanta hospital, 35 hospital staff and 1 emergency doctor have got COVID. In Patna as well, in the main hospital, 72 doctors have tested positive today. A total of 159 healthcare workers there are now positive. In Delhi Safdarjung Hospital, the main government hospital, 23 resident doctors have tested positive. And in AIIMS at Delhi, 15 healthcare workers have been admitted for COVID as well. So this really is a big worry, because how do you tackle the pandemic if your doctors and frontline workers are actually infected with COVID? And remember, of course, that they haven't got booster shots yet, and that really is something which is a big issue as well. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has agreed that they will hear a case involving resident doctors and their counselling tomorrow. It's just a day earlier than the schedule too. This is regarding the NEET PG counselling. NEET is the main medical entrance exam. The Supreme Court will look at the issue of the economically weaker section reservation. A bench of 3 judges will be set up: Justice Chandrachud, Justice Suryakant and Justice Bopanna. The Chief Justice constituted a special bench at the centre's request. The centre had asked for an urgent hearing before the scheduled hearing day after, saying doctors were extremely concerned. Well, moving to other headlines, and this is really shocking news. A 21-year-old student from Bengaluru has been arrested now in the case involving an online auction putting up photographs and names of Muslim women, many of them vocal on political social issues online. So they were put on an online auction app. And an 18-year-old woman from Uttarakhand is suspected to be the main accused in the case. Reports say she's also been detained. The police said the two worked together, and to throw police off the track, they actually created a fake profile of a Sikh group to imply that they were behind it.
Vishal Jha, who was detained in Bengaluru and arrested after being brought to Mumbai, produced in court. The police say he played a key role in the Bully Buy app case that allegedly offered Muslim women for a so-called auction. He was brought to Mumbai yesterday and has been sent to police custody till January 10th. What is really shocking is that the kingpin may be a woman who's also being questioned now by the Mumbai police. The woman is also going to be brought to Mumbai on a transit remand from Uttarakhand. Police sources add that the duo came into contact on social media itself, and there are others involved in the racket as well. Sidra Patel, an activist, was one of the women who was targeted. She says she is relieved there has been some action.
It's quite numbing. I mean, I cannot process that there's a 21-year-old and perhaps there's a woman who harbor so much hate towards the community that it is perfectly acceptable for them to auction a group of women who are probably, some of them are their mother's age, some of them are sisters' age. It is inconceivable for me.
The start of the new year, the beginning of 2022, turned out to be horrible for several Muslim women who found themselves being auctioned online on the Bulibai portal. Now, several of those women are dissenting voices, activists, journalists.
Police sources say on social media the accused tried to show they were related to the Khalistani movement, but in reality, the police have not found any such links so far.
Nothing is a solace enough for that humiliation that I went through in that moment, which I still feel for the anxiety that I'm going through. Nothing's going. I think that's going to take a lot of time to get over it because the investigation is going on. I don't know as we speak which group my photos are being circulated, who's looking at them.
Sidra says it was Shiv Sena MP Priyanka Chaturvedi reaching out to her that made her file the complaint with the police.
Women have often been at the receiving end of trolling, rape threats and other such crimes on social media, and the accused have often got away. But now, with the police acting on such cases, they say this is a welcome change from similar cases even in the recent past, like the Suli Deals case. In Mumbai, with camera person Sanjay Mandal, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Absolutely horrific case. Then a 21-year-old engineering student behind, as that complainant says, this horrific case involving women, his mother's age, his sister's age, and he's educated. He's got all the opportunities, yet he does something like this along with another young woman who apparently is just 18 years old. Well, in other news, today pictures were released of Indian soldiers unfurling the Indian flag just after the New Year at Ladakh's Galwan Valley. The pictures were released a day after the Chinese media had put on social media pictures of Chinese soldiers with the China flag at their side of the Galwan Valley. So apparently not the disputed area, but clearly with this picture versus picture online war, this is the latest strategic battle between India and China. But nice to see the pictures of the Indian army and Indian soldiers there with the Indian flag. So those pictures released by India today of Indian soldiers unfurling the Indian flag at the Galwan Valley. Well, elections and NDTV are synonymous, and here's the big election interview. Navjot Singh Sidhu gave his first television interview as Punjab Congress chief to NDTV's Manoranjan Bharti. He had harsh words for ex-Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh, calling him a traitor, but also he was more reticent when it came to chief ministerial choice for the Congress, saying it's up to the High Command to decide, and saying that he had no problems with current Chief Minister Channi.
कैप्टन नहीं है, गद्दार है। कैप्टन एक बिका हुआ आदमी लगता है। मैं प्रियंका गांधी और राहुल गांधी इन दोनों का सिपाही हूँ, अनकंडीशनली रहूंगा, लेकिन मैं पंजाब के साथ द्रोह नहीं करूंगा। देखिए, अभी का मुख्यमंत्री 2 महीने तो आपने उसको दिए हैं, तो क्या बांस पे चढ़ जाए? उसकी इंटेंट अच्छी है, लेकिन बजटरी एलोकेशन और पॉलिसीज से पंजाब ऊपर उठेगा। पंजाब की धरती इस 25 साल के जुल्म के बाद इतनी सयानी हो गई है कि अपना वारिस खुद चुनेगी, हाईकमान तय करेगी। सिद्धू कहता है जो 5वीं पास करेगी, हम इंसेंटिवाइज कर रहे हैं, पढ़ाई को इंसेंटिवाइज कर रहे हैं, ड्रॉप आउट सबसे ज्यादा है। क्या ये अगली जनरेशन में इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है? क्या ये लॉलीपॉप है? क्या ये फ्रीबी है?